And some of our traditions of hospitality are deeply rooted in Scripture. For example, Genesis 18, very early on, Abraham is visited by God. 3 strangers come by the oaks of Mamre, is the famous beginning verse of chapter 18. And these 3 strangers come, and Abraham recognizes them, or at least recognizes them as a holy visitor, if not God, present with him. And so he calls for cakes to be made. He calls for a fatted calf to be killed. And that is a very generous thing, right? Because that's not an easily renewed resource. They're a traveling, itinerant, nomadic people who are herding sheep. So their sheep are very important to them. Because it's not like us that can just go pick up another rack of lamb at the grocery store the next day. That's an important sacrifice that he's making. So it is abundant. It is extra. It is more than probably they would do on a normal day. But at the same time, it is healthy too. It's not so over the top that they could eat 1 lamb in a day in a meal. Like they're not going to have leftovers that have to somehow be stored or will be spoiled and wasted.
Yeah.
So there's a simplicity to it as well. And also, the sheep walked, which doesn't always
reproduce.
And
made little sheep.
Right. And so, they were probably lean, way more leaner than the meat that we get in a lot that's been caged and penned up. So that tradition pulls into the early Christian church's traditions, and then the traditions that produce the New Testament. We see in the Epistle to the Hebrews that in the last chapter there's several instructions to them as a community, and one of which is to continue showing hospitality, because unawares people have shown hospitality to angels, and it's referring back to that Abraham story.
Yeah.
So that is a command to the Christian communities to continue to show hospitality, and that definitely comes out of the Jesus tradition as well. Jesus in the Gospels practiced a radical table ministry. Was willing to eat with Gentiles and sinners and prostitutes and tax collectors, and so it was very in a culture where eating was very formalized and ritualized, and there was real clear criteria about who you ate with and who you didn't. Jesus went beyond that to show hospitality to people. But you use the word response, and that I resonate with that. In the Episcopal Church, we define and teach prayer in our catechism as a response to God's grace in word and deed. So, thinking from that angle, responding to God by what we have been given, our ability to produce an abundance of food, by giving that to others, makes our hospitality a prayerful act, an act of prayer. And I know that cycles back to some of the stuff you've been talking about in this course about planning what you eat and praying about that, and infusing your health practice with prayer. Infusing our hospitality, or thinking of our hospitality as not something about us showing off our ability, but rather a response to God's grace.
Yeah.
Makes it a more prayerful thing.
The early Christians did not share a meal. They shared prayer and a meal within the apostles' teaching. It sounds like it's a 3-legged stool there. That's different than just me and you sharing a meal,
Right. Breaking of the bread and the prayers.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an infusion in there that is just not there. And so that if the meal is infused, I'll have to think about this. Have I ever prayed have I ever prayed during eating a bag of Skittles?
I have not.
What is a Skittles? What would a Skittles prayer be?
I don't know. What I think that goes on to a similar epidemic in our culture is individualized spirituality. People want it. They want their religion and their spirituality the way they want their fast food. They want it your way, right away. or my way right away. And that's not spirituality, and that's not religion, and it's neither of those things. I'm going to go on a little bit of a pop culture rant here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we see this individualization of eating. Fast food, just whip through the drive-thru, I'll grab me something to eat, I can keep working, right? It's not about sitting down at the table with family and friends and eating so that you enjoy each other's company in any way. It's not anything like that. It's just about you getting through your day, right? So that's isolating. And one definition of sin is the things that disconnect us from each other and from God. So our practices with food, if they isolate us and they don't have a connection to community and they don't have a connection to prayer, which is the way we're not isolated from God, is the way we commune with God, then our food practices are leading us down the wrong path. Mm-hmm. But the consequence of that is you can get exactly what you want at any moment without any effort. Or decreased effort, not near the effort that it took in the past. Which is a great thing. You know, I had Chinese for lunch and I loved it today. And that's a great thing. Except if it's isolating, if it's individualized, this is just about me self-actualizing me for the betterment of me, then I'm on the wrong path.